If you want to learn to use Starlink in emergency situations and what accessories you need, then watch this video. Hey, Gary Cruz with GaryCruz.com here. In the recent hurricanes, I decided to get Starlink just in case my internet goes down. In my home internet, I use Comcast, and it's gone down just because they're Comcast. In a case of emergency, I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and California is known for earthquakes. And I want to be prepared in case there's an emergency, in case the cell towers go down and the internet goes down. And this is why I got Starlink. So the first thing I want to do is kind of go through the different options of what you can do to use Starlink in an emergency situation, how to store it, how to power it, and what other accessories that you might need. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and first get started with the unboxing and go through the setup process. All right, here's some basic instructions across the top here. We've got the Starlink dish, which you may have seen that is much smaller than the Generation 3 and the previous Starlinks. It's about the size of a piece of paper. Have a power cord, about 50 meters, instruction manual, a power adapter with a DC output, and this power is rated at 30 volts at 2 amps for a total of 60 watts. So it can take in the US 100 to 240 worldwide, and I'll convert it accordingly. And then there's an adapter here that goes on the back for different mounting options. By default, it has this kickstand, which allows you to lay it on the table or on the ground. All right, so fully unboxed, you've got the manual, you've got the Starlink with the kickstand mount attached, the power adapter, the other mount, and the power cable with the DC plugs. I think they're 5512. All right, the first thing I want to do is I want to swap out the kickstand mount with this mount, and I bought a tripod stand. Let's go and get that set up here so that I can use a tripod to point this to the sky. And I bought this on Etsy, and I'll have the links below. And this one's from Adam. So here's the tripod stand. The reason why I got this one is that he uses a thicker resin for this 3D print, so that makes this a little more secure. And this goes right in here, and the tripod mount is right here. Let's go ahead and get that. So as a photographer and a videographer, I have a bunch of different stands and mounts that I can use with this tripod, but in this case I'll be using this portable tripod by Manfrotto to set this up. Okay. So it looks like before you want to put this on, you want to route the power cable through here before sliding this in, because it looks like it's going to be hidden behind this mount when you put this on. The first thing I'm going to test is this Starlink Mini 3 meter or 9.8 foot cigarette lighter to DC power cord cable for the Starlink Mini. It seems to be nicely built. All the links to the products that I'm using in this video will be in the description below. So you can see feels pretty nicely made. And what's nice about this is that it also supports the waterproofing O-rings or water resistant O-rings to keep this water resistant in wet conditions. I'll plug that in, and then we'll slide in the mount there. There we go. So with the cigarette lighter, I'm going to plug this into my Jackery 240 to test this out. Let's go ahead and put this right in here. And this outputs 12 volts. Hopefully it has enough output to support the wattage. So now it's outputting 25 watts. And looks like it's going up to 35 watts, loading up. And while that's booting up, I'm going to go ahead and mount this to my tripod. Yeah, let's get that tripod set up. I don't know if you can see this, but there's a blue light blinking here indicating that it's loading. And now I got to get this outside instead of my garage, because you need to have a clear line of sight pointing north at the northern sky. All right, the first thing I want to do is make sure it's pointing north. So let's go ahead and orient the camera. And looks like we need to get connected to it first. Okay, so I'm going to select the Starlink Mini. I'm just going to guess I got a clear view, find a central location, plug in the Starlink, which I've done. Now I've got to connect to the Wi-Fi, which is Starlink. There it is. Paired successfully. Oh, it's already saying it says it's online. First try. Interesting. And now it's going to go ahead and download a software update. Okay, while that's downloading, I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of the accessories here. We already started off with the Jackery. The next thing I'm going to cover is this Anker battery. And then with the Anker battery, I want to charge that with this U-Green charger. So the thing is that USB is using PD, which is a 5 volt, and the native voltage here looks like it's 30 volts. And the cigarette lighter is outputting 12 volts natively. So I also bought some extra cables. So let's go ahead and take a look at these cables that I bought from AliExpress. But I think you can also get these on Amazon if you're in a hurry. So basically these are clones of the Starlink cable that comes with the Starlink. So I've got a 5 meter, a 3 meter, and a 15 meter. And the nice thing about this is that these are the USB to DC, and they also have the O-rings that keep the connections watertight. Now there's other one from Amazon, which is the PD 100 watt to DC, does not have the O-rings. So this is just handy if you are using it on a dry day. So this other accessory is a mount that I purchased, from Contronics Design. This is a Starlink Mini mount with suction cups. So basically this will hook the Mini up to, let's say, a sunroof inside a car. Or one of the reasons why I got the Starlink is when I was in Napa visiting some friends, there was no Wi-Fi or even cellular access for a few miles. So that just reminded me that in a pinch or an emergency situation, if I did need Wi-Fi on the go, that I can use this mount with the Starlink Mini to get internet access while driving. And speaking of driving, then I can also use that. I can use the cigarette lighter to Starlink Mini mount to power the Mini in the car. Okay, it looks like the Starlink is ready to install an update. So let's go ahead and install now. And it's about to reboot. And it says the internet will be unavailable for a few minutes. Okay, what's the other thing? Oh, so the last thing is, got a lot of great accessories. Where am I going to put this all? So let's go ahead and move these all over to the side here to make some space. So here we go. We've got a plastic tool case. Now I'm a big fan of Pelican cases, as you can see in my garage. But Pelican cases are pretty expensive. You know, this is just for backup. And so when I saw this online, I saw that this was designed for the Starlink Mini. In fact, it already looks very similar to a Pelican case. In fact, the design elements are very, very similar. It looks like it's from Case Club. It says Case Club cases and custom foam. Oh, and made out of Anaheim, California. It's heavily inspired by Pelican. And let's go ahead and see what foam it has inside to handle the Starlink Mini. Right, Starlink is talking to satellites to determine which way it's pointing. Determining alignment. Adjustment may be necessary in a moment for best performance. All right, we'll wait for that. Now let's take a look at this case. Ooh. Getting online is taking longer than usual. Make sure Starlink has completely clear view of the sky. Okay, so just to give you an idea of what we're looking at, let's switch over to this view here. As you can see, I don't have a complete view of the sky. I've got some trees, and then of course my house. And so it doesn't look like I have enough sky here. I might have to move over to a different location. Oh, now it says it's back online. Okay, there we go. Interesting. All right, let's take a look at the statistics.
You've got mail.
My ping's at 57, latency's 40, power draw is 20 watts. So let's just do a quick speed test. You can see that Starlink is connected. And even with that limited view of the sky, I'm getting about, oh, it's going up. 134 download and about 21 upload, which isn't bad for just popping it out right in my right in front of my garage with a limited view of the sky. All right, so now let's go ahead and grab the Starlink and see how that works with this case. Okay, grab that. All right, here's the Starlink, and let's just put that right over here. Let's remove this mount, and let's unplug it. Okay, this is the tripod mount. This is the power adapter. We've got the Starlink, and then we have the kickstand adapter, and then below we have our cable, which is the 15 meter, and then also we've got another slot here for some additional accessories. Let's see if I put this power cable there. Okay. All right, so the challenge I have is where to put this battery. Because if I put that battery right there, it's going to have a tough time closing. This thing has this weird vinegary smell to it. Hopefully it'll dissipate. All right, so let's actually put this battery down here and then put that on top. Oh, there we go. So I have everything in this case in case of emergency, no pun intended. It has the Starlink and a battery with all the cables that I need to power it up and mount it. Now the two things that I don't have is the car mount and this tripod, but there's a kickstand in here. And also, I don't have, I'm going to keep this original wire in another location. I've got the 3 meter and I've got the 5 meter. These were so cheap, I just picked them up just as extras. So let's just talk about how we would set this up in case of emergency. So I lose internet. Get my case out, open it up. Got my power cable for my USB battery, and I've got the Starlink. Open this up. I have my Anker battery, and then I have my tripod mount. So I'm going to go ahead and put, in this case, the power cord through the mount, plug it in. Keep in mind this battery is not waterproof. So I've got it on the tripod. Neighbor's taking out the trash. All right, so let's take the battery and plug in the Starlink. And this is the, what is this called? The Anker Prime 27,650 milliamp power bank, which outputs 250 watts. All right, so I'll get that plugged in right over here. And the nice thing about this is that it has a screen to show the status. And let's go ahead and get that. You can see that right now it's outputting 34 watts on boot up. And let's go ahead and position this over, pointed at the sky. So as that's calculating the orientation, says that the Starlink antenna is unreachable, but after a while it'll pick up a satellite. It is a little bit overcast, so let's take a look at the sky here. Let me just save this preset here and point up at the sky. So that's about the same orientation that the Starlink is looking at. In fact, let me switch to this camera here and see if I can point to that so you can see what I'm looking at. There we go. So they're about pointing at the same place. So that's one of the first things you want to do after you do the initial setup and download is you want to change the Wi-Fi name and password so that no one's just randomly accessing your Starlink. Unless you're in an emergency situation and you definitely want to leave it open and not have a password, then people can connect to your Starlink to help others that are in an emergency. All right, so just a little tip on the battery life. This Jackery 240 is rated at 240 watt hours, and looks like the DC output goes from 12 volts to 30 volts at 42 watt max. And then this Anker Prime is at 27,650 milliamps, but it also has 250 watts. Based off my testing, this takes about 4.5 to 5 hours to drain, and this is almost the same amount. Interesting that this small battery almost is the same equivalent to this bigger battery, but this is using the 12 volt and this is using the 5 volt. And the native input in the Starlink is 30 volts based on the power adapter using DC. So just keep that in mind when buying batteries. There is a smaller version of this which is cheaper. I just wanted to get the longer capacity. In fact, I've got 2 of these, but I dedicated this one to Starlink and put a little sticker on that, and this actually fits inside the case, whereas this doesn't. So I've got my emergency trifecta complete. I've got backup internet, I've got backup power with a Tesla Powerwall, I also have solar, I also have my emergency bags with emergency rations and all the emergency things that you would need, typical of when you need to go in a hurry. I also backed up my digital life onto a hard drive, which is a triple backup, which I can also get to go, which is encrypted, because in the end, all things are basically replaceable except for those memories. And I want to make sure that I back up those memories either in the cloud or also on a hard drive that I can take and not have to think about, once my family is safe, what are the things I need to grab? We can always replace those material things, but you can't replace those memories. So with that, I think it's vitally important to have a backup. So in terms of cost, it's not cheap. It's $5.99, but that's, in my case, I consider that the cost for insurance for emergency backup. It doesn't make sense for me in this SF Bay area to use this as my primary internet because I do have really good cable connection, but it's really meant for a backup. And also our cellular here is really good as well. So in case those 2 things go down, in case of a catastrophe like the big one, in California we're overdue for an earthquake, and if that big one hits, it's definitely going to take down cable and infrastructure and maybe even power. So getting communications is one thing. So I got Starlink. I also have emergency radios in my backup bags, and these radios have also been tuned into emergency responder stations, even though that's not recommended, but in case of emergency, I have those set up as well. So in summary, the reason why I got the Starlink is for backup. And let's talk about the cost. The Starlink Mini is not that cheap. It's $5.99 for the Mini, but the larger version was on sale for $2.99 and down to $2.50 for a while. So just keep an eye on that. You can also buy that at Home Depot. I bought it directly from the Starlink website. And then in terms of monthly costs, it's $50 a month that I was choosing for the Roam, but there's other options. Let's actually take a look at that. Let's go look at my browser here. If you like this video, hit like and subscribe on the way out, and thanks for watching.